This country is so completely out of control, and there is no responsibility. There's no responsibility from Blinken. There's no responsibility from the president and what happened in Afghanistan. There's no responsibility from General Milley. Does anybody actually think any of these things are going to be paid for? If you know, or even seriously be looked at where there's a serious penalty that could happen? One of the other things that happened this week is Twitter blocking the Hunter Biden story. The SEC said that wasn't election interference. How? That buried a major story that was really important for the American people to understand. There are crimes being committed by Joe Biden and his family, and they involve China, among other nations. You cannot have a president who is compromised. How is that not election interference? Jason Chaffetz is with us. He's the Distinguished Fellow at Government Accountability Institute. He was the House Oversight Committee chairman for the Republicans back in the day. Hello, Jason. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
How do I become a Distinguished Fellow at like at Whataburger, anywhere? I mean, that's a pretty cool thing. Distinguished Fellow. Government accountability.
I know. Doesn't that sound official?
It does.
I made that up. I submitted it, and they said okay.
And they said okay. Wow, that's great. Okay, so Jason.
I tried to use that when I bought my groceries, but
yeah.
I didn't get a
Didn't work.
Didn't get a
Yeah.
discount.
I know. I try to use my doctorate, and it doesn't work. Nobody buys into it. Anyway, Jason, tell me about what you know about the laptop, because Peter Schweizer is doing a book coming out in January, and I've talked to him on and off air, and it is loaded with facts that Joe Biden knows. There is evidence that he knew and was involved in massive corruption.
Yeah, look, Peter Schweizer has earned a reputation over the years of doing some very thorough research, and he's the one who leads the Government Accountability Institute. And so what you look at is not only do you have the laptop, but then if you cross-reference it with what Senator Johnson found in the Secret Service records, and then you cross-reference it again with other emails, perhaps those that are on the receiving end of those emails, then you've triangulated it, and you have a really good picture that this is authentic material. And as you said, Glenn, it does go directly to the greater Biden family, their dealings in China, their dealings in Ukraine. And the one that really bothers me is what was going on in Mexico, because that was as strong of a case for quid pro quo as you could ever possibly make.
I'm not sure I know the Mexico connection. Tell me that story.
At one point, Hunter Biden is frustrated. He says he's on Air Force Two. He's about to go with his father to Mexico, and he's telling the grandson of the former president of Mexico, look, I'm coming there. I've already brought you into the White House. I've gotten you every meeting at the White House you've asked for. I've brought you into the vice president's residence. You've met with my father along the way. I've given you all the access. I need to see the compensation for that in terms of a contract. We're landing in Mexico City. I want you to be there, but I have to have essentially the money. That is in black and white in his words telling us. Now, you can take that information and backtrack it and go look at the Secret Service records and understand that these people did have access to the White House.
Correct.
And to the vice president's residence.
You have this in China. I mean, you know, I look at what happened at the Bagram Air Force Base and the fact that now that's becoming a Chinese base, it looks like. And we just handed over, what, $1 billion and a half Air Force base strategically located, and we handed it to the Chinese. And I look at the relationship that Joe Biden has with the Chinese, and quite honestly, they're selling his son's artwork to the Chinese. That's not for Americans. That's to the Chinese. And it's clearly a money laundering system. At least it has all of the earmarks of a money laundering system. And I wonder, are there deals? Did we just give this base away for favors? I don't know.
Well, all you have to do is go back last year, the United States Senate. It was actually Senator Carper, who is the senator from Delaware, and was long time. He was the other senator from Delaware, and Senator Portman issued a report, and they said, if you want to launder money, the way you do it is through dealing of art. That's how the Russian oligarchs are getting around the sanctions. That's how the Russians are moving the money. So you have a report that's just over 12 months old from the United States Senate saying this is how to do it, as if it was the blueprint. And then you have all these nefarious dealings that really do beg the question. Bagram is about 25 miles north of Kabul airport. I've flown in and out of both airports. One's secure, one's and safer. The other one, not so much. Why give up the Bagram Air Force Base when you know you have to extract Americans? There are so many questions that have to be answered. And the other thing I would mention that most people don't realize, the one asset that Afghanistan truly has is a major copper mine. It's one of the biggest copper mines in the world.
Yep.
Run, operated by the Chinese. And they have strategic interests there. And it just begs the question, can Joe Biden actually do anything, or what is he doing? That's a fair question.
So you were on the House Oversight Committee, so you know what's out of the norm and what's not. Let's just go through some of these. What's going on with the Secretary of State? How far out of the norm is that?
Totally, completely. I don't understand what he's doing, how he's doing it. But my experience also is these people don't just run amok. They don't just go off and do their own thing. You have to look at the White House and wonder who's pulling the triggers there.
Correct.
And then you go back and you see the same cast of characters like Susan Rice,
yes,
for instance. And then you start to think, okay, we've seen this movie before.
Literally.
And we're having the same results. Who's pulling the triggers?
Okay, so General Milley, yesterday it was alleged in a book by Bob Woodward. It comes out next week. We don't know all of the details, but the details we do have, even Trump said, I don't believe it, but if it's true, it's treasonous, where he called his longtime buddy, who is the basic Joint Chiefs of Staff, his counterpart over in China, twice, and said, look, if there's going to be a war or anything, or if the president goes crazy, I'll call you in advance. You don't do that. That's outside of the chain of command in our Constitution. How common is this, Jason? How out of the norm is this?
Well, it better not be common and normal. I've never heard of it to that degree. Look, General Milley needs to come forward and say, yes, that's true, and then resign and probably be charged with treason and tried. Or he needs to say, no, that's not true, and this is the truth. There are other parts of that book, quite frankly, Glenn, that don't make a whole lot of sense, at least based on the Washington Post account that I've read it. I haven't read the book. But General Milley, in his own voice, if he starts to use a spokesperson, if he starts to use somebody who's written something out of the Pentagon, then my inclination is, yeah, it probably is true.
Well, that's what
and
happened
it makes
today.
It all the worse.
That's the
key indicator right there.
Yeah. Now, Fauci is way out of control, and now we're using OSHA as a threat to use this public-private partnership with these giant corporations to enforce a vaccine on the American people. The president has no ability to do this, but that doesn't stop them from defying the Supreme Court when it comes to HHS suspending all loans and repossessions. They just keep doing it. How out of the norm is that?
Well, I saw that to be more and more common. Look, I was elected same time as Barack Obama and Joe Biden was back in 2008, and I was on the oversight committee for the 8 years in which they had that presidency. It became more and more common, at least from my perception, as time went on, that they would just do things, throwing up against the wall, and then seeing if the Republicans could get it struck down in the courts. And every once in a while, they'd be surprised and say, "Oh my gosh, we actually got that through," because they would never be able to do it legislatively. They would never be able to use the proper balance and tools of power that they've been given, but they just do it, and then you have to go to court to pull it and yank it back down. Unfortunately, that's more common. Fauci should go. He should be the subject of an investigation. I do not understand, Glenn, why the Democrats who have the House and the Senate aren't probing the origins of COVID.
Yep.
They aren't doing a serious investigation on the border, and they're really going to just quickly get in and out of this Afghanistan situation. Those three demand serious investigations. Fauci, being the subject of that investigation, should either step aside or be forced to step aside. I think he should be fired, dismissed. I don't have trust in him. But he's there and would be the subject of an investigation, which is just not right.
Are we a banana republic? Is there a rule of law for the elites in America today?
I think that's, there was a great piece written recently that I read. It says that this is what was attracting so many people to the world. The world, the attractant to the United States was the rule of law.
Yes.
But you just wonder, is there an application of justice? One of the biggest frustrations I had through the years, I have pointed out problems, people that should have handcuffs. People say, but nothing happens. And, they don't give members of Congress handcuffs, nor should they. But you see this stuff in black and white, like Hunter Biden, going back to him. That alleged violation with his handgun, why is that not being prosecuted?
Yeah.
Why is that not being prosecuted? I don't have good answers to that other than if you're a Biden or a Clinton or somebody of a political elite, you just don't have to play by the same rules.
What should Americans do?
They need to be continually vigorous in pointing these things out. Stick to the facts. Continue to make the case. But these things, they require winning elections. And I wish I had a silver bullet. But you know what? I still believe this is the greatest country on the face of the planet. And that truth will prevail. But they got to be vigilant and not listen to this woke crowd that wants to shoot them down at every level. I just hope America collectively gets its act together and says, the rule of law is a little bit more important than making sure that, Hunter Biden has a comfortable life.
Jason Chaffetz, the author of a book, They Never Let a Crisis Go to Waste, distinguished fellow of the Government Accountability Institute and the former House Oversight Committee chairman. Thanks so much for being on with us, Jason. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Glenn.
You bet.